All right, welcome back, everybody. I was wrong on Oprah Winfrey. She's $70 million richer today thanks to that Weight Watchers investment. Bernie Sanders might want to tax that money, but it's not just the rich he's going after. Give him kudos for being consistent to Peter Doocy in Washington on a plan to make sure everyone pays their taxes. And, Peter, I guess he means everyone, huh?
He does. And, Neil, it's really interesting. Remember, talking heads declared Hillary Clinton the winner of last week's Vegas debate, but Sanders is the one whose numbers are spiking in the time since. Secretary Clinton is still ahead, but flat. She's got 45%. Then there's the Democratic Socialist Senator Sanders, up 5 points in a CNN post-debate poll that makes him the only one trending upwards, even as he introduces a big tax hike.
When a mom gives birth, she doesn't have to go back to work in 2 weeks. So if there's an illness in the family, dad or mom can stay home with the kids. That will require a small increase in the payroll tax. I'm on board Senator Gillibrand's legislation, and we can accomplish that with just a small increase in the payroll tax.
But that'll hit everybody. That's going to hit everybody.
That would hit everybody. Yeah, it would.
And the Vice President, Joe Biden, speaking right now, has 18% support in that new poll, even though he hasn't debated and he still hasn't publicly said he wants to be president. But sources are telling Fox that some activists want the VP in the race before Clinton's Benghazi testimony Thursday, because if she does well, it could really help her sell more undecided voters on the idea of her as commander-in-chief before he even gets started. Neil.
All right, Peter, thank you very much. Peter Doocy. Now, to a read on whether taxing everybody is fair, Julie Roginski and Charles Payne. I think I kind of know ahead of time their respective positions, but Julie, slightly on the left of Charles on this point of view.
Just a little bit.
You say what to what Bernie Sanders wants to do.
I'm all for it. I was all for it when Kirsten Gillibrand, who's the senator from New York, proposed this. Look, the average woman would be paying $1.38 more a month for this, which is nothing. The top tier would be paying fewer than $5 a month for this. And what this does is allow, we talk about family values all the time. This is the most family values thing you can do. If you give birth, you don't have to go right back to work. You could stay home and take care of your baby. You could breastfeed your child without having to worry about giving him or her formula because you have to rush back to work. If you have a sick family member, you have to stay home with them.
Rushing back to work for you?
What is rushing back to work for me? I think 12 weeks, which is what this proposal does, is the tip of the iceberg. You know, I had to go back to work right away. A lot of other women did. Most women cannot afford to stay home with unpaid family leave. This, to me, is the most family values, family-friendly thing you can do. And people who talk about family values should espouse this position.
All right. Well, there are a lot of things to espouse, but this stuff costs money. Charles Payne, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the bigger family value thing is having a job in the first place. It goes along with all the other stuff. Higher minimum wage, the forced part-time work stuff from Obamacare. All of these things, as far as the government encroaching on private business and telling them what they must do, all they're going to ultimately do is create fewer jobs. And I think we've seen an example of that in the last 7 years. Now, Bernie Sanders himself, this is just part of a litany, a laundry list that adds up to $18 trillion. So, of course, the average person is going to be taxed. Everyone's going to be taxed. And this giant welfare giveaway utopia is just going to fall apart. It's just going to be another example of Greece or Venezuela all over again. If you really want to help American families, just create an economy that's growing, where everyone can find jobs. And if you have the skill set, you'll probably get more days off. But let's get jobs first.
You know, Julie, one of the things that Bernie Sanders has said is that this is what other European countries do. But those European countries are in a world of hurt. Greece in and out of insolvency and bankruptcy. Italy, and I'm afraid to say my people, not much further behind. The point is that, yeah, you could talk about cradle-to-grave protections and securities, but then comes the little issue about paying for it.
Well, Neil, you want to talk about paying for it? Let's talk about America. The median worker would pay an extra $1.38 a month. $1.38. I think we could all swing that. I spend more at Starbucks every 2 hours.
So you think that that's where it stops? Whatever increase, that's where it stops. I have not known a tax increase that has ever stopped at that level.
That is the bill that that is the bill that he's talking about, and that is the bill that he's supporting. $1.38 for the median worker, to me, seems like a very good trade-off.
But Julie, listen to what you're saying. I mean, when we started Medicare, the financing had a set limit to which it would go. Then that was raised and raised and raised. Social Security, the same. Raised and raised and raised. So I'm just saying what starts out as something that looks like an affordable tax becomes an unlikely burden.
Well, wait a second. You're talking about now saying that Medicare and Social Security are a bad idea. I don't understand where you want to go back to. What days you want to go back to? People in the gutter?
Do you remember how they were sold? Do you remember Medicare sold as a $66 million program that is now a $500 billion program?
Well, Neil,
good intentions run deep and get very expensive.
How old do you think I am that you think I remember where Medicare? How old do you think I am, my friend?
Well, this is why I asked you the question, because you obviously don't remember that.
I don't
remember.
But Charles
Green, my only issue, and I take no umbrage against anyone like Julie, anyone who has a very good heart. I just think the rest of this country pays for that.
We're paying for it now.
And then realizes that they're getting very little bang for the buck as a result.
We're paying for it now with lost productivity.
You talk about lost productivity and all. But Charles, look at Italy, look at Greece, look at Portugal, look at Spain.
And to your point, Neil, I mean, the Great War on Poverty, 50 years old, was going to cost a handful of billions. We've spent trillions on it. Listen, Bernie Sanders' laundry list is $15 trillion for Medicare, another $1 trillion for Social Security, $1 trillion for infrastructure, almost $1 trillion for free college, $300 billion for free family aid, $29 billion for private pensions. I mean, the list goes on, and we know that these numbers are just the beginning. And it's not fair. It's not even partially honest to say, oh, man, I wasn't around when all those other things were being promoted. We're all somewhat historians. We know what we're talking about. We know economically we've got to be very careful. I think we shouldn't try to divvy up the spoils of this nation. We should try to figure out a way to reignite it so that the same tide lifts all ships. Right now, all I hear from the Bernie Sanders of the world is that America has peaked. Let's divvy up the money and see where we go from here.
No. Wait a second. You're talking about the fact that you were talking about lost productivity. You're talking about lost wages. And in fact, what you're talking about is many women out there find it cheaper to stay home and take care of their kids than they do to go in the workforce.
A lot of people find it cheaper since the government's paying them to stay home.
You want to discourage work? This is the best way to discourage work.
A lot of full-body, able 25-year-old men are getting a Social Security disability because they can.
I'm talking about
we're talking about a country that's created an environment where you don't have to work.
Charles, I don't know what university you're living in. I don't know what you know about infant care, but it costs more in some states to put an infant. No, let me finish saying this.
You don't have to tell Julie, you're insulting me now because I have a couple of kids. I have a couple of grandkids. I mean, you're insulting me.
Do you know how much it costs to put them through infant care?
Get a job. Without a job, it's a moot point. Without a job, it's a moot point.
$35,000 to put someone through infant care.
I can turn this studio around right now. Now, Julie, the only thing I will raise is, do you find it odd that in the Democratic debate, obviously a lot of big spending plans, big spending initiatives, not a one to how to pay for it, not a one to address the debt. In fact, the debt didn't even come up.
Well,
as a liberal, does that bother you that apparently the party seems to be immune to math?
Well, actually, it's not immune to math. I want to talk about who actually had a balanced budget the last time. I believe it was a Democratic president.
Answer my question. Did it come up during that debate?
It did not come up during that debate.
Not.
But you want to talk about this specific proposal. This specific proposal is paid for. It does not add a cent to the debt and does not add a cent to the deficit. And what it does is allows women to get back in the workforce. You want to encourage work? This is the best way to do it.
All right. I wish we had more time. Blessedly, we do not. But, guys, I want to thank you both very, very much.
Thanks.
Right. Meanwhile, a Republican congressman who fears we've got an arm race going on in the Middle East right now, because if Iran kind of gets a pass on this nuclear thing, and he fears it might, then everybody wants in on that nuclear thing. All on the same day Iran is beginning to collect the chits of that deal. And I'm not chitting you after this.